Okay, there's one question that I've gotten more than anything else since my Day in the Life Bali YouTube post last week. That question is, what do I prefer between Bali or Bangkok? I'm getting smashed with this question, is Bali better than Bangkok? And I understand why it's such a burning question is because the two are both such well-known tourist and nomad locations, and they're both really well-known as a place to visit. So I'm going to break down briefly in this video what I think of both places. Obviously I live in Bangkok, I'm visiting Bali. Right now I'm in Nusa Lembongan or Nusa Chanagam, which I made a video about most recently, and I really love it over here, it's beautiful. But I want to break down the differences between Bali and Bangkok, right? So I want to start with the costs, because this has been the biggest question that I've got. How much am I spending here? I already made a cost breakdown for Bangkok before I left most recently. But look, really in terms of cost, Bangkok, Bali, almost the same. I know online it says there's a little bit of a difference in terms of cost breakdowns for the two, if you look at a living cost calculator or something like that. But realistically, depending on what you're doing, I mean, I have spent a lot more here in Bali than I would in Bangkok. That being said, I've been with friends and family and going out and you know, enjoying myself a lot more than I usually would in Bangkok. Usually I'm working and training, right? So I've spent more, but in terms of just general spending, it's going to average out pretty well the same, and it depends on how flash or how basic you want to go with things like your accommodation and your food and that sort of thing. One thing that I am a big fan of, as many of you know, is that the cost of beef here is a lot lower than it is in Bangkok. I eat mostly steak, so it's been great to be able to get back to eating a lot of beef for significantly cheaper than it is in Bangkok. But other than that, I think cost should not be a deciding factor between the two places. It should really go down into the next few things, which is entirely, you know, up to you. So the next thing is livability for me, and this is really based on your opinion. And I've said this before, and I've had a lot of people ask me questions like, would I prefer this place or this place, or you know, what's better out of this place or this place? And as I always say, it's really down to what you prefer. I am somebody, I'm not big on beaches. I don't really care for the beach, and I don't really like being out in the sand, you know, and all that sort of stuff and running around outside. I really like the metro and the booming city, so that's why Bangkok fits me so well. It's a busy, bustling city, and I've said this before, and I love that, right? Bali, however, is quite the opposite, and it's still chaotic in its own way. You know, if you're in Kuta or Seminyak, which is where we first were, which I'm not really a fan of personally, so naturally my opinion is going to be biased in some way on that front. But one thing that I will note that really eaves me in terms of livability in Bali is the whole, you know, being a massive tourist destination. Everywhere you walk, you're getting hassled. You can't walk anywhere without getting hassled. It's much the same in Patong Beach, and Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam was the same. It's like, you know, if you're walking down the street, people are jumping out in front of you, trying to sell you shit, motorbike rides, massages, all that sort of stuff. So if you're happy to live with that, then that's entirely your prerogative. For me, it affects a place's livability personally. I don't want to spend months in a place where I can't walk to a shopping center without getting harassed. So one really big score in my book for Bangkok is that I don't have to deal with that ever. I don't think I've ever had anybody try to sell me anything in Bangkok. So that is going to make up a massive difference for me. Other than that, you've got beautiful beaches over here. The sun is hot, but it's hot in Bangkok as well. The air quality here is a lot better than Bangkok. So again, if that's something that is a big deal for you, then there you go. I have an air purifier in my apartment in Bangkok, and other than that, I don't really notice it, so it's not a big thing for me. So personally, livability, Bangkok gets the tick for me. But that being said, this trip has made it clear to me that I really do prefer either a big bustling city or a desert tropical location. I don't really like the blend that is Bali, you know, where it's a busy tropical location. It's not really for me. And that's why I think I'm enjoying Nusa Lembongan so much, because it's a lot quieter and, you know, nobody's trying to sell you anything. And like I said, it's a lot calmer out here. So point that either way you prefer, but there's sort of the livability breakdown. Now the next, I suppose, best thing is the digital nomad scene in both. So if you're going to be trying to connect with other people, business owners and other people that might be doing something similar to you, I think both cities have their ups and downs. For me, my apartment in Bangkok is a little bit outside the city, but I have stayed in the center of the city as well. One thing I've noticed that in Bangkok, I've met a lot more either early on business owners or students in Bangkok. So a lot of you know, students that might be in university or something like that and they're studying, or somebody who's starting a business. In Bali, it seems as the nomads that I've met are a lot more influencer type of people, so people that are walking around with the camera and doing like what I'm doing right now and filming. Now for me, I'm obviously a business owner as well, so it's great to connect with influencers, it's great to connect with business owners. It really doesn't faze me either way. But for you, if you're somebody who you might want to be actually bringing in connections to help you with growing your business, or quite the opposite, with growing your channel or influencer presence, you might choose either for that purpose. So what I've seen in Bangkok, a lot of young business owners and starting out business owners, or Bali, a lot of influencers and starting out influencers. So you might find those to be, whichever way you prefer. Right, and the last thing that I think really breaks down a comparison between the two, as I said, costs are very similar. Livability entirely up to you. Do you prefer a tropical and remote destination, or do you prefer a bustling, busy city? And then in terms of the nomad community, it's going to be, do you prefer to connect with business owners or influencers? Now, you will obviously find influencers in Bangkok and business owners in Bali, but that's just what I've seen, is that there's more of each in either, right? And so, yeah, the last thing is going to be nightlife, naturally. And for me, again, they were both very, very similar. I mean, in Bangkok, you've got Khao San Road, and I don't get out all that often. Here, I was obviously out a lot more than in Bangkok. But in terms of a night out, I think both places I end up spending about the same amount of cash. I end up probably connecting with about the same amount of people and having just as much fun. The venues here are very lively and awesome. So we were in Seminyak for most of the time, and there's some awesome clubs. You've got La Favela, which was insane. It's like a 6-story nightclub. You've got Motel Mexicola, and that was pretty crazy too. But in Bangkok, and again, this is a personal preference for me, I really like rooftop bars a lot more than nightclubs. I love going to rooftop bars, and Bangkok is full of them, as you've seen in some of my videos before. So again, for me, nightlife, Bangkok gets another tick. But if you prefer nightclubs and crazy partying, Bali easily wins that competition. It's just not for me, so I don't want to be biased and and not leave that bit of light. But yeah, I think they're both fantastic places to go out and have fun and meet people and so on. So all in all, to answer the burning question, do I prefer Bali or Bangkok? For me, it's absolutely Bangkok. Bangkok is still going to continue to be home. But I will stress this again, that it really is up to your preference. If you're somebody who doesn't like busy cities and you don't like being in the chaos like that, then somewhere like where I am now in Nusa Lembongan, or maybe in Uluwatu or Canggu might be better for you. I know that in Seminyak and Kuta it was just a bit too messy and chaotic for me. That's like I say, it's not like Bangkok where it's organized and it's still busy, but it's not so chaotic. Whereas, yeah, Seminyak and Kuta, they're not for me. So I think it's really worth doing your research and understanding that it depends on your lifestyle. In terms of costs, very, very similar. If I have any breakdowns or numbers that I have to give to you, I'll put them on the screen now, but I don't really think there's anything that's worth comparing because it's all so similar. Like in Bangkok, I pay about 200 AUD per week for my apartment. Here, a nice spot where I'm here, well, even where we are right now, which I've showed you this place, but Nusa Chenigan, beautiful spot right on the water. And I believe I'm paying, including meal, 1 meal per day, I'm paying about $280 per week. So yeah, it's really very similar. The one thing I'll note here is that there's no good way to get around outside of the bike, so you do have to rent a bike as well. But again, it's also closely tied together that it's really not worth making the decision based on the cost alone. So that's my answer. Both very similar, but also very different. If you prefer the sun, the beach, the sand, and the good air quality, then somewhere in Indonesia or Bali might be for you. If you prefer the hustle, bustle, and the craziness of an organized city like Bangkok, then that might be the one for you. If you have any other questions, drop them in the comments or send them to me on Instagram. I've been loving all these travel questions that I've been getting from you guys on Instagram. And on that note, I will see you in the next one.